from stories across the world to stories here at home. This is the National News Broadcast. A very good evening to you. I'm Nitya Sarachandra.
A very good evening indeed. I'm Charita Minaprarachi, and now let's move on to the headlines for tonight's news. Fatal motor accidents occurring in the Valakumbura and Ravana areas result in 8 deaths. In keeping with requests made by the Mahasangha, 2 Buddhist universities taken under the Education Ministry upon the instructions of the President. Another group previously not enrolled on trainee basis receive job opportunities. The Premier instructs to expedite the Northwestern Province Canal project. The US seeks assistance from Australia to control bushfires.
Now in your top story this evening, deadly motor accidents occurring in the Valakumbura and Ravanal areas today result in the unfortunate loss of 8 lives and several others sustaining serious injuries. A fatal accident that occurred at dawn in the Valakumbura area in Alawa today resulted in 5 persons being killed on the spot. The accident involved a collision of a tipper heading from Kurunagala to Alawa with a motor car travelling from Alawa to Kurunagala at around 4:10 a.m. early this morning. The deceased individuals are the occupants of the motor car, who were a group of employees working on the Central Expressway. They met with the accident while returning after attending a funeral in the Varakapola area. The bodies of the deceased remain at the Varakapola Hospital mortuary. A fatal accident occurring at the 24th mile post at Ravana Alla along the Vallavaya road in Alla resulted in 3 deaths on the spot. The incident occurred when a van skidded off the road and toppled down a precipice of 150 feet. The driver was reportedly stuck in the vehicle and was rescued after a 3-hour maneuver involving the tireless efforts of members of the Diatalava Army Camp, the Alla Police and residents. The deceased are 3 individuals attached to the Badula Ceylon Electricity Board. The accident occurred when they were returning after attending a funeral in the Gaul area. The police state that the driver had fallen asleep at the wheel. 2 others who sustained serious injuries were admitted to the Vallavaya and Monaragala hospitals. The bodies of the deceased remain at the Demodara Provincial Hospital mortuary. A collision at the Tambutte-Gama-Denne-Gama level crossing involving a cab this morning resulted in 7 persons sustaining injuries. The cab from Talava to Gampaha had reportedly collided with the train commuting from Talaimana to Colombo. Area residents state that the rail guard at the level crossing had fallen asleep.
At the request of Mahasangha, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa decided to bring Sri Lanka Buddhist and Pali University under the Buddha Sravaka Bhikshu University under the purview of the Ministry of Education. President also paid attention to the possibility of placing these 2 universities under the University Grants Commission. President also paid attention to the possibility of placing these 2 universities under the University Grants Commission. President instructed the officials to conduct monitoring their activities in a proper manner under the supervision of the State Minister while safeguarding their identities. This decision was taken by the President during the 5th meeting of the Buddhist Advisory Council held at the Presidential Secretariat yesterday. President said he will present the steps taken by the government and their progress pertaining to the proposals and advice given by Mahasangha at the 4 previous meetings at the next session. Mahasangha commended the President for his efforts to address the issues pertaining to Pirivan education and endeavours to improve Dhamma school education by implementing a systematic procedure and regulation. Anunayaka of the Malwatha chapter, Most Venerable Vijayathasiri Nayaka Thera stated that the approach used to institute officers, that of the opposition leader in the parliament, was exemplary. Thera added that the people were repulsed by how the predecessors made appointments to the same officers. Venerable Professor Indiraga Dhammaratana Thera highlighted the requirement of initiating an insurance scheme resembling Agrahara insurance plan for Bhikkhu teachers, their parents and siblings in their times of need when they are hospitalized. Most Venerable Divyaga Hayasassi Nayaka Thera pointed out the importance of introducing a procedure to give marks for certificates of Dhamma School final examination and the Dharmacharya examination when offering the government jobs. Most Venerable Professor Kotapitiya Rahula Thera suggested that a decision on Bhikkhu education and Buddhist education or a Sanghayana on Theravada Buddhism is needed. Pointing out the advice of the Buddhist Advisory Council have been used while formulating the structure of the state ministries. President said he expects the Mahasangha to continue to guide the government in policy preparations. He further said Dhamma schools, Bhikkhu education, Pirivenas and Buddhist universities were brought under the direct supervision of a single state ministry for their advancement. The Mahasangha, representing the Buddhist Advisory Council, officials including Principal Advisor to President Lalit Veeratunga, Secretary to the Ministry of Education Professor Kapila Pereira, Secretary to the Ministry of Buddha Sasana, Religious and Cultural Affairs Professor Kapila Gunawardana, and the Commissioner General of Buddhist Affairs Sunandakarya Peruma participated in the meeting.
රාජ්‍ය අමාත්‍යවරයාට ඒ රාජකාරී කරන්නට තියෙන අතරම මේ දෙක අපිට ඕනනම් අධ්‍යාපන අමාත්‍යාංශයට ගේන්නත් පුළුවන්. හැබැයි මම සාකච්ඡා කරලා බලන්නම් විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ප්‍රතිපාදන කොමිෂන් සභාව යටතටත් ගන්න පුළුවන්කමක් තියෙනවද කියන එක.
Now, in the meantime, the Ministry of Public Administration, Provincial Councils and Local Government states that under the program to grant employment to unemployed graduates and diploma holders, it is intended to enroll for training individuals who possess the other required qualifications but whose names were published under the category of those who will not be enrolled on trainee basis. Thereby, applicants whose applications were turned down with the rejection reasons given as engaged in employment or currently a member of the Employee Provident Fund will receive the opportunity to submit an appeal. Secretary to the Ministry J. Ratnasiri states that if such applicants qualify, they will be enrolled for training. Therefore, applicants need to submit the applications according to the guidelines detailed in the notice published on the official website of the Ministry, www.pubad.gov.lk. In addition, the appeal needs to be submitted to the respective divisional secretariat before the 15th of September.
And meanwhile, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa today instructed to expedite the Northwestern Provincial Canal Project in order to irrigate 12,500 hectares of farming lands in the province to enable cultivations during both the Yala and Maha cultivation seasons. The project, which was launched under the Mahinda Chintane Manifesto in 2014, was stalled during the previous government. A rally was headed by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa at the Siabalangabu tank at Moragallagama in Kurunegala today. At the rally, the project report on the proposed Northwestern Provincial Canal Project was presented to the Prime Minister by the Director Engineer Ashoka Pereira. The Northwestern Provincial Canal Project is expected to irrigate water towards 350 minor tanks and 8 major tanks. A total extent of 12,500 hectares of farmland are expected to be harvested, including 3,500 hectares of the Mi-Oya irrigation network and 2,500 hectares of the Hakvatuna reservoir. The implementation of the Wayamba Palata Ala project will result in many benefits such as solving the acute drinking water issue, generating new employment opportunities and mitigating human-elephant conflict. Residents of the area attending the rally voiced their concerns to the Prime Minister. The area residents pointed out to the Premier that the children live amidst difficulties in just a few acres of land inherited from their parents. The Premier responded stating that the land issue prevails in all areas of the country and a solution will be provided. Next, a resident of the area complained that although 200 tanks come under the Abampola zone irrigation scheme, the Ulvalapola tank has not been lifted. One of the relevant officials then stated that if details on the tanks are provided, they are able to conduct a survey as the Asian Development Bank has allocated funds to reconstruct tanks only included in the list. On hearing this concern, the Premier instructed the officials to submit an estimate to the Finance Ministry for the tank in question to be reconstructed. Another individual raised a concern that many shortcomings are not in schools run by the Provincial Council and teachers from outstation areas do not have proper quarters. The Prime Minister instructed the relevant officials to look into the matter and provide a solution. The Premier also instructed the electric lamp posts to be made available in areas frequented by wild elephants. Northwestern Provincial Governor A.J.M. Muzammil, Minister of Roadways Johnston Fernando, Minister of Lands S.M. Chandrasena and several MPs were present.
Now, in the meantime, the Monetary Board decided to extend the deadline of 4% working capital loan scheme at its meeting held on 19th August 2020. Now, accordingly, COVID-19 affected businesses and individuals can submit their loan applications under the Saubhagya COVID-19 Renaissance facility to respective licensed banks until the 30th of September 2020. Meanwhile, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka surpassed the milestone of Rs 100 billion loans on 18th of August 2020, approving 117 million rupees worth of loans submitted by 36,489 applicants under the above facility. Out of the approved loans, licensed banks have already disbursed more than 68.5 billion rupees among 25,365 affected businesses and individuals island-wide as of 18th August 2020. Now, out of 100 billion rupees approved under the scheme, 50% has been provided to businesses in the services sector led by trade services, while distributing 34% and 16% among businesses in the industry sector and the agricultural sector respectively. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka, in consultation with the Government of Sri Lanka, introduced the Saubhagya COVID-19 Renaissance Loan Scheme facility in 3 phases to provide working capital loans at the interest rate of 4% per annum with repayment period of 24 months, including a grace period of 6 months to businesses, including self-employment and individuals adversely affected by the COVID-19 outbreak.
And meanwhile, Minister of Justice Ali Sabri states that attention has been focused on instituting a special code to combat child abuse. He announced this proposal joining in a Pahan Puja held at Independence Square under the theme "Let Us Protect the Children" yesterday. The event was organised by the Women's Empowerment and Urban Citizens Organisation with the objective of obtaining active contribution from the public in creating a progressive environment to protect the children, as in the present context, children are vulnerable and are subjected to harassment and abuse. These organisations have taken steps to launch island-wide awareness programs to promote children's rights. The Pahan Puja held yesterday was also attended by Ms. Shiranti Rajapaksha and several parliamentarians. Minister of Justice Ali Sabri states that in this task the necessary laws needed to be considered and complied. He further states that in addition, if necessary, the government will obtain cabinet approval to establish a separate court to hear cases pertaining to child abuse.
අවශ්‍ය වුණොත් අපි කල්පනා කරනවා කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේ අනුමැතිය ඇතුව මේ වගේ ළමා අපචාර වලට සම්බන්ධ වන අයට ඒහා සම්බන්ධ දේවල්.
And Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksha has focused attention on 46 children who are inmates with their mothers who have been imprisoned upon charges of various crimes, including drug smuggling. This issue was detained in a national newspaper recently. 46 such children below 5 years of age whose mothers were imprisoned during pregnancy or during the infancy of these children are currently in the custody of their imprisoned mothers upon orders issued by the courts. Upon the instructions of the Premier, the Prime Minister's Media Division has sought details from State Minister Sudarshini Fernandopulle on the future steps to be taken regarding these children. The State Minister had said that under the instructions of the Premier, currently all details are being collated. The State Minister had further stated that the Prime Minister will be promptly made aware of the legal conditions and measures relevant to ensure the release of these children. Commenting on this incident, Prison Commissioner General Tushara Upuldeniya stated that the majority of the mothers in question are being detained at the remand prison and the relevant details are being gathered speedily.
Now, deposits to the Itukama Healthcare and Social Security Fund have currently exceeded 1,577 million rupees. Chief incumbent of the Manil Vattaviharya, Venerable Dr. Bodhagama Chandimathera, donated 10 million rupees to the fund yesterday. The donation was received by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the Presidential Secretariat last evening. Attorney at Law SKW Gunawardena donated 50,000 rupees to the fund, whilst Danulka Nandiranga LNKP Jaikodi and a child by the name of Deodunu Chamikara have also contributed. The donations were handed over to the President by the Prime Minister. In addition, a group of Sri Lanka returnees from Korea have donated 112,800 rupees, while SW Sisira Gunatilaka has donated 25,000 rupees and Priyanta Kalubovilage has contributed 15,000 rupees. The Office on Missing Persons has made a contribution of 473,870 rupees. The Anuradhapura District Secretary has contributed 696,000 rupees. Other individual contributions include 177,000 rupees donated by consultant Dr. K. Disanaika and 50,000 rupees each donated by Chairman of the Monetary Board U.H. Palyakara and Board Member Mr. Kanagasabi. Contribution to the fund can be made over the website www.itukama.lk or by dialing #207#.
And now let's move on to the local update of the COVID-19 pandemic. A total of 9 more COVID-19 patients have recovered and been discharged from hospitals today, increasing total recovered cases to 2,798. The Health Ministry said today. In the meantime, the total count of positive cases of novel coronavirus found in Sri Lanka currently sits at 2,947. 6 individuals have tested positive for COVID-19 today, raising Sri Lanka's infections tally to 2,947. The Department of Government Information said the latest cases arrivals from Kuwait, India, United States and United Arab Emirates. 9 more individuals infected with COVID-19 made complete recoveries today, says the Ministry of Health, according to the situation reported issued by the Epidemiology Unit. 7 from the Valikanda Base Hospital and 1 each from the Infectious Disease Hospital and Miniwanguda Base Hospital have been discharged upon recovery. COVID-19 recuperations confirmed in Sri Lanka thereby reached 2,798. The Epidemiology Unit says that only 134 active novel coronavirus cases are currently under medical care. Over 31,000 people have completed quarantine process and 6,855 are still at 48 quarantine centers. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka has completed 200,000 and 2,007 PCR tests so far. 2,759 tests have been carried out yesterday. Meanwhile, 2 groups of Sri Lankans who were trapped in Qatar and Malaysia have arrived in Sri Lanka today. They were subjected to PCR test at the airport and later directed to quarantine centers.
Now, in the meantime, from News of the World, WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus yesterday said that the World Health Organization hopes that the coronavirus crisis can be over in less than 2 years. Now, the Spanish flu that hit in 1918 took 2 years to end, he stated.
More connectedness, the virus has better chance of spreading. It can move fast because we are more connected now. But at the same time, we have also the technology to stop it and the knowledge to stop it. So we have a disadvantage of globalization, closeness, connectedness, but an advantage of better technology. So we hope to finish this pandemic before less than 2 years, especially if we can pull our efforts together and with national unity, global solidarity. That's really key, with utilizing the available tools to the maximum and hoping that we can have additional tools like vaccine. I think we can finish it in a shorter time than the 1918 flu.
Yes, thank you, Imogen, and thanks for the question.
An Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison put a Facebook post today saying that he and his family enjoyed a Sri Lankan-style dinner today. The post says Saturday night is curry night. All Sri Lankans this time with lamb beduma and godamba rotis. Girls and Jen loved it, still thinking of everyone in Melbourne. Hope you are finding ways to make the best of it in lockdown. You have turned the corner.
Now, police this evening inspected the Sadaham Sevena at Rajagiriya, at which Venerable Athurale Ratanathera resides. Now, the inspection was conducted in response to a complaint lodged with the DIG Police Office of the Colombo Police Office Division. The complaint lodged by Venerable Hunupitiye Chandrasiri Thera, who is the coordinating secretary of General Secretary of the Our People's Power Party, Venerable Vedinigama Vimalatissa Thera, who is reported missing, alleges that the party secretary is being kept in hiding. The Talangama police apprehended organised criminal Irigama Rajapaksha Gedara Ananda Silva alias Jaka Sampat today. The police say that the arrestee is a close associate of the organised criminal leader Karati Dhammika. The police also seized a revolver, 2 swords and over 4 grams of heroin. The suspect had been wanted in connection with many offences, including obtaining bribes. A shooting incident occurring at Parrot Junction along Gaul Road in Ambalangad resulted in 1 death this morning. The deceased is a resident of the Marupa area in Kuligoda. The incident reportedly occurred when the victim was heading home by motorcycle when 2 riders of another motorbike had shot at the victim and fled.
And meanwhile, Speaker Mahinda Yapabewardena and Education Minister Professor G.L. Purvis called on the Mahanayaka and the Anunayaka Theras of the Malvatu and Askiri chapters and obtained blessings today. Upon arriving in Kandy this morning, Professor G.L. Purvis met with Anunayaka of the Malvatu chapter, Venerable Nyangoda Vidachisiri Thera, and obtained blessings. Professor Purvis briefed the Anunayaka Thera of the functions of his ministry. Thereafter, he expressed his views to the media on constitutional amendments. Minister of Education Professor G.L. Purvis alleged that the 19th Amendment is a totally distorted constitutional amendment which caused disadvantage to the country as the President is not unable to hold the post of Defence Minister. Professor Purvis further stated that although the responsibility on defence is vested, the power to execute the responsibility has not been facilitated. Thereby presenting an urgent bill in Parliament is not possible. He added that it results in disorder in the governance of the country. Meanwhile, newly appointed Speaker Mahinda Yapabewardena called in Mahanayaka of the Malvatu chapter, Most Venerable Tippatuwave Sri Srumangala Thera, and obtained blessings this evening. Thereafter, the Speaker called in Mahanayaka of the Askiriya chapter, Most Venerable Varakagoda Jnanaratana Thera, and obtained blessings.
Now, many ministers and state ministers engaged in observational tours in several areas in the country today, pledging support to the development process in the toured areas. Sports Minister Nama Rajapaksha joined in a rally in the Polonnaru area in Tangal today. He stated that he intends to introduce a middle and long-term sports plan. State Minister Indika Anuruddha joined in the harvesting ceremony of the Dalupad Gedara field in Mallava Gedara Grama Niladari division in Dewlapitiya, where barren farmlands were cultivated. These farmlands had remained unutilized for 30 years and 20 acres of the cultivated barren lands were harvested today. Several projects to pave complete on the by-roads in Rikilla Gaskada, Johnston, Watta and Woodwood Colony Road were initiated in the Hanguranketa area by Nuwara District Development Committee Chairman S.V. Disanaika. State Minister Rear Admiral Sarath Veerasekara conducted an observational visit in the Piliyandala District Hospital today. He stated that the shortcomings in the hospital will be rectified and area residents will be provided with more facilities. Kalathara District Coordinating Committee Chairman Sanjeev Vaiduriman engaged in an observational visit in the Belapitiya area in Horana today. He made this visit to thank the voters of the area who supported him. He stated that in development programs of the President, attention has been given to micro-development sectors in the country. Colombo District MP Premnath C. Dolawatha engaged in an observational tour of the Kotahera Kanda village in the Sitavaka Divisional Secretariat zone in which 137 families reside. A special screening of the film The Newspaper took place with Speaker Mahinda Yapa Abhiwadana in the audience yesterday. The film reflects on the impact of a news article that had on society and a particular family, and also details frantic efforts taken by two individuals to republish the accurate version of the article.
And in your sports updates this evening, the sight of Tiger Woods holding cold water bottles to his neck and rubbing his upper back August 20 ahead of the Northern Trust triggered speculation about his physical health, but the former world #1 said there was no need to worry.
No, Troy put some pretty hot oils on there. My lower back's used to it. It's accustomed to it, and we do it all the time, just so I can get loose. But decided to put some up on my neck, and it's not as tolerant as my lower back, and so it gets awfully hot. I mean, that's, you know, it's common in pretty much every other sport, especially, you know, hockey. Those guys put some pretty hot stuff on their legs, but you become accustomed to it. My lower back's pretty immune to it, but my neck's not.
Were you just cooling it down? Did you cool
It's
down?
hot. No, it's hot. I mean, as soon as you heat up, it's you know, the whole idea is to keep my spine loose. You know, my spine is not what it used to be and never will be.
And with that, we conclude tonight news. Do it just tomorrow at the very same time. Stay safe. Good night.
Good night.